Hello and welcome to this exploring session, our first look at Sappho and Phao by John Lyly. This is following on fairly quickly for us from our last look at a John Lyly play. We last looked at Canope, which is available on the YouTube channel now, and this play follows on very much on top of Canope in terms of performance at the time. So we're around 1584. And these two plays are coming into existence around about the same time. So looking at them as this first flourishing of dramatic writing by Lyly, as far as we know, it's a lovely exercise. We had nice things to say about Canope. We weren't wholly uncritical, but there were lots of good things that came out of that room, and I'm looking forward to finding out what things come out of Sappho and Phao today and tomorrow. This is going to be going over two sessions as we look at the text in its almost entirety. Looking at the text today, we have assembled this fabulous room of readers who are going to give this a bit of a dusting and see what comes out of it. So reading, where shall I start? Reading Sappho as well as Cupid and Favilla today is...
Hello, I'm Emma Kemp. I'm an actor and I live in London.
And reading the other half of the title character, Phao and Ismena is...
I'm Tamara. I'm an actor, usually based in London, currently in Germany.
Reading Pandion and Canope today is...
Hi, I'm Eric.
And reading Venus and Eugenua is...
Hi, I'm Lois, a retired academic living in London.
And reading Cryticus today is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, neither an actor nor an academic, based in Suffolk.
Reading Molus today is...
Hello, I'm Lynn. I'm a college writing teacher. This is my buddy Scooter. I live in the Northwestern United States.
Reading Trachinus and Sybilla is...
Aliki Chapple. I'm an actor, translator, and theatre maker based in northwestern England.
Reading the prologue at court, as well as Lamia and Calipho is...
Hi, I'm Rachael. I'm an actor from New Jersey.
And joining us for the first time, reading the prologue at the Blackfriars and Mileta is...
Hi, I'm an actor, and I'm also from New Jersey, named Joe.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading stage directions and generally moving things forward. Just a note, as per usual, that all of my pronunciations of those names are very provisional and probably wrong, and that's fine. Other people can throw alternatives at you if you so wish. We're going to be starting today with the two prologues. There are two alternative prologues, for this was performed at an indoor theatre at the Blackfriars, as well as being performed at court. And so we might be able to think of this as the tryouts prologue, followed by the big do prologue, and we can do a little compare and contrast about what that says about the audiences and expectations and what these prologues are trying to do. So we'll start off throwing Joe in at the deep end for his first session, the prologue at Blackfriars.
Where the bee can suck no honey, she leaveth her sting behind. And where the bear cannot find origanum to heal his grief, he blasteth all other leaves with his breath. We fear it is like to fare so with us, that seeing you cannot draw from our labors sweet content, you leave behind you a sour mislike, and with open reproach blame our good meanings, because you cannot reap your wonted mirths. Our intent was at this time to move inward delight, not outward lightness, and to breed, if it might be, soft smiling, not loud laughing, knowing it to the wise to be as great pleasure to hear counsel mixed with wit, as to the foolish to have sport mingled with rudeness. They were banished to the theatre at Athens, and from Rome hissed, that brought parasites on the stage with apish actions, or fools with uncivil habits, or courtesans with immodest words. We have endeavored to be as far from unseemly speeches to make your ears glow, as we hope you will be from unkind reports to make our cheeks blush. The Griffion never spreadeth her wings in the sun when she hath any sick feathers, yet have we ventured to present our exercises before your judgments when we know them full of weak matter, yielding rather ourselves to the courtesy which we have ever found than to the preciseness which we ought to fear.
And thus close that first prologue to a public audience. I think my immediate thought on this is it reminds me of a note I gave to a company of actors once when we were doing a comedy. It was a relatively light comedy, and the note I gave to them was, "We are not at home to Mr. Guffaw. We want to keep the audience just tittering along. That's all we want." And I find that, breeds soft smiling, not loud laughing. And it's a really interesting opening gambit. Thoughts in the room about what this prologue is doing? I'm trying not to lead too much on this because I have many, many thoughts, and I would like to find out what other people who haven't read this play before think. So if you're an audience at home, how are you finding that? Go with Lynn, then Eric.
Well, yes. I mean, looking back at Kemp as this author's another work by this author, this prologue is, I think, helpful about how to read this, how to engage with this. It's about intellectual pleasures. I think intellectual pleasures is a phrase I used when we talked about Kemp. It's a more sophisticated and more subtle kind of wit and humor. Don't expect, fart jokes. So, it's fair. It definitely gives your audience an idea of what's going on here and how they are expected to interact with the material.
Eric.
I was going to say this one still has animals in it. We've got the bees, we've got the bears, but this time we don't have the birds where we had like that. Yes, the peacock that will lose their feathers and, so on and so forth. And there was all that business, which was quite random.
It's always nice to have the bees again. There's bee imagery, always nice to have. Other thoughts from the room about this as a way of opening a show? Aliki.
Well, I mean, it's doing the, look, we know it's not perfect, please be nice thing, which is always nice. I enjoy it. And it does seem to be saying that it's got something important to tell you in the humor, that the point of it isn't the humor. So don't be disappointed if it's not all that funny and has a bit of message to it. Yeah?
Yeah. Good thoughts. Good thoughts. Alan.
Is this another boys' company play?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So yes, it's this expectation management. I'm finding it very interesting. And I always wonder about there's an element to that feels like just barefaced manipulation of an audience. So it's just going, well, if you didn't enjoy it, you just haven't been watching it properly.
There are a lot of artists do about a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
No bad TripAdvisor reviews, please.
That's actually a minor adjustment we could add to that. Yes, I quite like that. Any other thoughts before we move on to the other prologue? Other prologues are available. Lynn.
Well, I just kind of want to respond to that. I mean, I appreciate the sort of, here's the secret decoder ring. Here's how to read this text or how to enjoy this play. I teach writing to young people, and we do a lot of reading as well as writing. And one of the things they struggle with is how to read. They don't recognize genre. They don't recognize satire when they see it. A few years ago, I assigned A Modest Proposal, where Jonathan Swift is proposing that we eat that. And some of my students didn't realize it was satire. So, yeah. So, I think I'm just kind of obsessive about genre and coding and how to read different categories of text. So I really appreciate this, and I understand the necessity for it.
Especially we're at a time when the concept of what genre is becoming more defined as we have a competitive marketplace where knowing what you're going to see is helpful when you're choosing your entertainment. Because we have choice, whereas before you didn't necessarily have that choice. You just went to see a thing because there was a thing and there was only one thing to go and see.
Classical genres of tragedy and comedy, and they were in classical times, those were much more concrete and the borders were less fuzzy. But when you mix that up with the native the English tradition, then your genre borders start to get really fuzzy, and so this is how to read this play or engage with this performance. It seems more necessary and more helpful.
Eric.
Well, also, it's interesting that it just goes, they were banished to the theatre at Athens and from Rome Hist that brought parasites on the stage. But then, like, we know that, I mean, I don't know if at the time they knew that Aristophanes was a thing, but, like, you know, there was comedy and fart jokes and stuff. So it's like, kind of, it doesn't really sort of, it depends who they're referring to. Like, if he's referring to Aristotle, for example, and all that sort of the poetics, it just kind of feels like, yes, we have specific sources for this work, and therefore we will not tolerate anything that is sort of less than that.
Joe.
Yeah, this seems like the earliest version of "eat this, not that." Every sentence has antithesis in it. It's very easy to read and get the point across.
Yes, it did seem to flow very, very well. As a performer, how was that working for you?
Yeah, as I say, because of the antithesis in almost every line, it's easy to lean into the differences, and I hope make it understandable to the audience.
Yes. Well, let's now compare this with something designed for a slightly different audience. This is for performance at court. So let's hear the prologue. Version number 2, please.
The Arabias being stuffed with perfumes burn hemlock, a rank poison. In Hybla, being cloyed with honey, they account it dainty to feed on wax. Your Highness's eyes, whom variety hath filled with fair shows, and whose ears pleasure hath possessed with rare sounds, will we trust at this time resemble the princely eagle, who fearing to surfeit on spices, stoopeth to bite on wormwood. We present no conceits nor wars, but deceits and loves, wherein the truth may excuse the plainness, the necessity, the length, the poetry, the bitterness. There is no needle's point so small which hath not his compass, nor hair so slender which hath not his shadow, nor sport so simple which hath not his show. Whatsoever we present, whether it be tedious which we fear, or toyish which we doubt, sweet or sour, absolute or imperfect, or whatsoever, in all humbleness we all, and I on knee for all, entreat that your Highness imagine yourself to be in a deep dream, that staying the conclusion, in your rising, your Highness vouchsafe but to say, and so you waked.
Yeah, well, we got the birds in. That will please Eric. Straight in there, sudden appearance by an eagle. Yeah, there's again similarities, but it's like the two different prologues we had last time. Interesting differences as well. Yeah, it's similarly playing about with the question of how the audience is expected to receive this, but it's couching it in a slightly different way. I do like the sweet or sour, absolute or imperfect, or whatsoever. Thoughts from the room on this one in comparison to the last one, or just in its own right? Aliki.
So it's addressed to one audience rather than an entire audience. It's very much for the queen, presumably. Yeah, I'm bad with dates. And it's more intellectual and less visual than the other one, I think. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say for now.
Lois.
Yeah, we've got bees again, implicit in the bit about honey and wax. And well, there's the assumption that everything else the queen sees is bound to be marvelous. And by comparison, this is a bit trivial, but she's so gracious that she'll put up with it anyway.
Yeah, because there's this question of expectation. Or with the other, it's that thing of, this is how we'd like you to behave. This one isn't telling you how you'd expect the queen to behave, because you don't do that. But you do say, you might not like it. We hope you do. And so it's doing a similar job, but it's doing it in a very different way. Other thoughts, Alan?
Oh,
I must admit, as a prologue, I don't find it as satisfactory as the first one. And it's almost got a feeling to me that this is almost throat clearing in, will the audience kindly shut up so we can get on with it? Whereas the logic, as Joe said, of the first one, which exposed all of these contradictions, to me worked far better as a piece of writing. This one seemed to meander.
Well, this one, I mean, it's interesting. The prologue at the court is shorter, and it does close on a really nice note. I like, you are in a dream and then you awake, and it's a lovely image. Yeah, it does feel slightly more constrained. The first one just feels more flowy and just, you're able to write it because it's just an ordinary audience, whereas this one feels perhaps just more trapped in that fear that you might have. Any other thoughts, Eric?
Well, I think there's a bit of a shift in that, like, we've got sort of, in the first one we talk about the griffin, which doesn't exist. Like, I mean, griffins, we know don't exist. Whereas here we've got the talk of the princely eagle, which is kind of, just sort of an interesting thing to note, I guess.
Joe.
Yeah, the gist of it for me is, I know Your Majesty and the court are used to really pretty flowery things. This is not that. But that line at the end that you like, I think it's almost like he's saying, giving the queen permission to, you can fall asleep if you want through this performance. And wake up at the end and just say, hey, wasn't that great?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and yes, I like that very much. Any other thoughts before we move into the play itself? These are interesting questions. What we might use in a modern production. Obviously, unless we do perform to royalty, the program at the court may not be fit for purpose. But doesn't mean there aren't bits of it that I quite like. So it's an interesting question of what material there might get used or not used at all. I don't see anyone bursting at the moment to say anything else, so let's get into the play itself. Let's start with Act 1, Scene 1, which is a very good place to start. And it starts with one of the title characters, Phao, coming on stage.
Thou art a ferryman, Phao, yet a free man, possessing for riches content and for honours quiet. Thy thoughts are no higher than thy fortunes, nor thy desires greater than thy calling. Who climbeth, standeth on glass, and falleth on thorn. Thy heart's thirst is satisfied with thy hands' thrift, and thy gentle labours in the day turn to sweet slumbers in the night. As much doth it delight to rule thine oar in a calm stream, as it doth Sappho to sway the sceptre in her brave court. Envy never casteth her eye low, ambition pointeth always upward, and revenge barketh only at stars. Thou farest delicately, if thou have a fare to buy anything. Thine angle is ready when thine oar is idle, and as sweet is the fish which thou gettest in the river as the fowl which other buy in the market. Thou needest not fear poison in thy glass, nor treasure in thy guard. The wind is thy greatest enemy, whose might is withstood with policy. Oh, sweet life, seldom found under a gold covert, oft under a thatched cottage. But here cometh one. I will withdraw myself aside. It may be a passenger.
And indeed, Phao retires as Venus and Cupid enter.
It is no less unseemly than unwholesome for Venus, who is most honored in princes' courts, to sojourn with Vulcan in a smith's forge, where bellows blow instead of sighs, dark smokes rise for sweet perfumes, and for the panting of loving hearts is only heard the beating of steeled hammers. Unhappy Venus, that carrying fire in thine own breast, thou shouldst dwell with fire in his forge. What doth Vulcan all day but endeavor to be as crabbed in manners as he is crooked in body, driving nails when he should give kisses, and hammering hard armors when he should sing sweet amours? It came by lot, not love, that I was linked with him. He gives the bolts to Cupid instead of arrows, fearing belike, jealous fool that he is, that if he should give thee an arrowhead, he should make himself a broad head. But come, we will to Syracusa, where thy deity shall be shown, and my disdain. I will yoke the neck that never yet bowed, at which if love repine, love shall repent. Sappho shall know, be she never so fair, that there is a Venus which can conquer, were she never so fortunate.
If love espies Sappho, he will devise some new shape to entertain her.
Strike thou Sappho, let love devise what shape he can.
Mother, they say she hath her thoughts in a string, that she conquers affections, and sendeth love up and down upon errands. I am afraid she will yerk me if I hit her.
How peevish boy! Can mortal creatures resist that which the immortal gods cannot redress?
The gods are amorous, and therefore willing to be pierced.
And she amiable, and therefore must be pierced.
I dare not.
Draw thine arrow to the head, else I will make thee repent it at the heart. Come away, and behold the fairy boy ready to conduct us. Pretty youth, do you keep the ferry that bendeth to Syracusa?
The ferry, fair lady, that bendeth to Syracusa.
I fear if the water should begin to swell, thou wilt want cunning to guide.
These waters are commonly as the passengers be, and therefore carrying one so fair and show, there is no cause to fear a rough sea.
To pass the time in thy boat, canst thou devise any pastime?
If the wind be with me, I can angle or tell tales. If against me, it will be pleasure for you to see me take pains.
I like not fishing, yet was I born of the sea.
But he may bless fishing that caught such a one in the sea.
It was not with an angle, my boy, but with a net.
So was it said that Vulcan caught Mars with Venus?
Didst thou hear so? It was some tale.
Yeah, madam, and that in the boat I did mean to make my tale.
It is not for a ferryman to talk of the gods' loves, but to tell how thy father could dig and thy mother spin. But come, let us away.
I am ready to wait.
And they exit for that first full scene. And sometimes in the past we've talked about, how many classical references one can have in a play. And of course here, of course, we actually have classical references walking in on stage and having a chat. Just a general textual note, apologies to the room there. Some of those loves were in fact Jove as opposed to love. Sometimes they were love. And I didn't stop you because it got quite confusing in my mind. So I thought I'd just let it run through. But sometime you're actually talking about love and Jove and love and towards and Jove being it got a bit confusing.
Yeah.
Ah.
That's sort of what you were talking about there. So I apologise. That's all been noted for the next time, as it were. Let's start with Phao. Thou art a ferryman, Phao. Always helpful when a character comes on and just proclaims who you are. I'm just wondering if he's touting for trade when he first comes on and just ferryman. Anyone want a ferryman? I don't know.
I feel like it's going back and forth between that and giving himself a pep talk. Because he's like, I'm happy with what I have, but he's making such a point of it. I like a simple life. I don't want anything else.
The tempting fate, somewhat. Tempting fate. Other thoughts from the room about this scene overall, Phao, or for that matter, Venus and Cupid? Lynn.
Yes, just I'm going to point out that there's more of those antitheses that Joe was talking about, and the patterning that Lois mentioned when we were discussing Campaspe, that even though this is prose and not poetry, it is really aesthetic, that all these balancing ideas of, I have content instead of honor, I'm a ferryman yet a free man. So patterning in these longer speeches is really important. It's part of the pleasure of it, is that aesthetic.
Emma.
I'm just looking at the Venus and Cupid bits, having played a bit of Cupid in the past. Cupid's normally very up for some mischief. However, he has doubts about this, which kind of sets up the idea. It builds the audience anticipation for something quite dramatic to happen, because Cupid's saying he's actually quite scared of Sappho, so that's interesting.
Yes, she will yerk me if I hit her with my arrows. Yerk as in, we were just discussing this in the chat, as being beaten, being whipped or lashed. So if you prod Sappho with one of your arrows, you might come to a bad time of it. It's interesting that this mesh. I mean, I'd be worried if I was the ferryman and Venus came up to me and immediately said, "Pretty youth."
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
You've been noticed by Venus. This may or may not be a good thing for your future career. Alan, I saw a hand earlier.
Yeah, I mean, the bit that hit me was Venus's final line on page 3. It's not for a ferryman to talk of the gods' loves, but to tell how thy father could dig and thy mother spin, or translated in a modern, peasant, know your place.
Aliki.
Well, he was referencing her as a mythological character, and of course that's her actual life. So she's a bit, well, you really shouldn't talk about things you don't know about. I can see her offense.
Lois.
Yeah, I wonder if he's also referencing the famous Lollard rhyme, when Adam dealt and Eve span, which was then the gentleman.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what. And it's also interesting because it's a kind of clash of universes. That the myth of the story of Vulcan or Hephaestus catching his wife and the god of war in bed together. That's the classical universe. And then Adam and Eve is the Christian universe, and they really can't both be true. So that's a really weird moment, actually.
All the mythologies.
All at the same time. Yeah, it'll be fine. Not confusing at all. Other thoughts? I particularly like Tamara's note in the. Oh, I'm getting interesting feedback from my mic there. That was interesting. I'll go to Joe. I just saw a hand.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if all this talk of tails is a bit of bawdiness on Phao's part.
Yeah, I think there's an awful lot of very sexual wordplay going on throughout all of this. That we're not necessarily getting the best of in this sort of first read, but we've got a lot of piercing and arrows and darty things being pushed at people, and all sorts of asking what you can, what pastime can you have in a boat, mucking about in boats. All sorts of potential is there. So I was saying just then, Tamara, you put in chat. I thought Venus was going to kill me. It's just that thing you survived.
I was surprised. Yeah, that's why I put it in the chat. I wanted to bring it up at some point, but it just didn't seem like that intellectual a reaction to the scene. But yes, I was like, she's gonna strike me down and kill me.
He's offering to tell as entertainment the story of one of her greatest humiliations.
Exactly. It's like,
Whoops. That's quite a faux pas, really, isn't it? Eric.
Well, also you kind of have to wonder why an all-powerful goddess is trying to catch the ferry to Syracuse instead of actually just like ending up in Syracuse. I mean, obviously this is part of the play.
Your chariot's in dock. You all of your mythological animals they're down for the day. You've got to go by public transport. Sometimes you've just got to dig out that Oyster card and make your journey. And it happens. It happens to the best of us. Okay, we need to move on. There's lots of short scenes once again. On just a structural note, we have these fairly choppy short interactions, so we're going to skip on to Act 1 Scene 2, and we have the entrance of 4 other characters. We have Trachinus, Pandion, Cryticus, and Molus. Pronunciation at your leisure.
Pandion, since you're coming from the university to the court, from Athens to Syracuse, how do you feel yourself altered, either in humor or opinion?
Altered, Trachinus, I say no more, and shame that any should know so much.
Here you see as a great virtue, far greater bravery, the action of that which you contemplate. Sappho, fair by nature, by birth royal, learned by education, by government, politic, rich by peace, inasmuch as it is hard to judge whether she be more beautiful or wise, virtuous or fortunate. Besides, do you not look on fair ladies instead of good letters, and behold fair faces instead of fine phrases? In universities, virtues and vices are but shadowed in colors, white and black. In courts, showed to life, good and bad. There, times past are read of in old books, times present set down by new devices, times to come conjectured at by aim, by prophecy or chance. Here are times in perfection, not by devise as fables, but in execution as truths. Believe me, Pandion, in Athens you have but tombs. We in court, the bodies, You, the pictures of Venus and the wise goddesses. We, the persons and the virtues. What had a scholar found out by study that a courtier had not found out by practice? Simple are you that think to see more at the candle snuff than the sunbeams, to sail further in a little brook than in the main ocean, to make a greater harvest by gleaning than reaping. How say you, Pandion? Is not all this true?
Trachinus, what would you more? All true.
Cease then to leave thy life in study, pinned with a few boards, and endeavor to be a courtier, to live in the embossed roofs.
A labor intolerable for Pandion.
Why?
Because it is harder to shape a life to dissemble than to go forward with the liberty of truth.
Why do you think in court any use to dissemble?
Do you know in court any that mean to live?
You have no reason for it, but an old report.
Report hath not always a blister on her tongue.
Aye, but this is the court of Sappho, nature's miracle, which resembleth the tree Salarus, whose root is fastened upon knotted steel, and in whose top bud leaves of pure gold.
Yet hath Salurus blasts and water bows, worms and caterpillars.
The virtue of the tree is not the cause, but the easterly wind, which is thought commonly to bring cankers and rottenness.
Nor the excellency of Sappho the occasion, but the iniquity of flatterers who always whisper in princes' ears suspicion and sourness.
Why then you conclude with me that Sappho for virtue hath no co-partner.
Yea, and with the judgment of the world that she is without comparison.
We will thither straight.
I might return straight.
Why, there you may live still.
But not still.
How like you the ladies? Are they not passing fair?
Mine eye drinketh neither the colour of wine nor women.
Yet I am sure that in judgment you are not so severe, but that you can be content to allow of beauty by day or by night.
When I behold beauty before the sun, his beams dim beauty, when by candle beauty obscures torchlight. So as no time I can judge, because at any time I cannot discern, being in the sun a brightness to shadow beauty, and in beauty a glistering to extinguish light.
Scholar-like, you said. You flatter that which you seem to mislike, and seek to disgrace that which you most wonder at. But let us away.
I follow, and you, sir boy, go to Syracuse about by land, where you shall meet my stuff. Pay for the carriage and convey it to my lodging.
I think all your stuff are bundles of paper. But now must you learn to tune your library to a wardrobe and see whether your rapier hang better by your side than the pen did in your ear.
And they exit. We're going to pause there. It's labelled here as the end of a scene, but in fact, the two of the characters who I mentioned were on stage are who have been standing to one side of this particular taxi rank. It does feel like this whole play is currently set in a bus station so far, and we've just got people randomly loitering around. So we still have two characters on stage, and we're going to go into that bit of this scene in a moment. But yeah, everybody's talking about Sappho. We're having a lot of Sappho build up here for a character we haven't met yet. I mean, we know it's it's a title character, but in both scenes so far, everybody's talking about Sappho. And yeah, we're getting an interesting character sketch of these particular characters and where they're from, because they state quite clearly sort of who they are and what their purpose in life is, but also getting a sense of perhaps the court of Sappho as well, and the surroundings there. Thoughts about the world we're in, this scene so far? It's not the end of the scene, so I don't necessarily make too many definite thoughts yet. Aliki first, then Lynn.
So this is not Sappho, the poet of Lesbos, by any description I recognize. This seems to be a ruler and in Syracuse, which is okay, fine. Other than that, we've got just something we see quite a bit of, the, okay, put your dusty books away and let's go have some fun.
Yeah, Lynn.
Yes, Lyly likes these little intellectual debates inset in his plays. What's better, the retired intellectual life or the real life of the court? You know, we have physical bodies instead of tombs, and colors instead of black and white on the page. So it's just this lovely little intellectual exercise, and kind of self-effacing, because Lyly is a schoolmaster, right? He writes for these boys' companies, which are, they're choir boys, but they are also school boys. They are living the intellectual life, and this is kind of a kindly critique of that. So there's this wonderful sort of self-effacing quality that I see here.
Other thoughts in the room? Alan.
I must admit, I didn't quite get the same feel that Aliki has from this, that in some ways I see it that Trachinus is not basically saying, you know, let's go out and have some fun. It's more, right, sunshine, you've had your time at college, now you've actually got to earn a living. You've got to do a real job. And it's the question of the real world hitting after academia. Is the way it's come across to me.
Lois.
I don't know how much Lyly would have thought the court was the real world, given the amount of flattery, for example, that it's full of. I think he probably would have thought of it as kind of play acting compared to real life. I mean, this is the debate between the courtier and the scholar. We had versions of it in Campaspe too, actually. And in fact, I think you get it all over the place in Lyly. I mean, he was very disillusioned about the court. Certainly by the end of his life, he kept hoping for preferment and didn't get any. So I think it is a real debate, really, the scholar versus the courtier, with much to be said on both sides.
Yes, and the comparison with Campaspe before us, again, we have this sort of intellectual debate going on here about the ideas and placement and where you are in society, and the question of preferment and how do you treat those above you? Obviously last time we had Diogenes, who could just be rude to everyone, whereas I suspect that's not going to be quite so possible within this universe that we have here. Any other thoughts before we sort of continue on with the second half of this scene? Eric, then Alan.
Well, it's still that trope of, I'm guessing it's trope by this point, I don't know, or at least for me, it's become a trope of like talking about someone who is not on stage, who has not appeared on stage, and who will probably appear on stage like 10 acts later or something, or 10 scenes later. Just, it's this sort of building anticipation of this beautiful woman who is also intelligent and like sort of like rich and, just sort of, yeah, whereas you there isn't so much action, it's a lot of standing around and talking, which is what happened in Campaspe as well.
Alan.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, looking at the two characters who've been present but not speaking, they are, of course, the two servants of the two who just had that dialogue. And that seems to be a very similar trick to what he played with Campaspe when we looked at that one, of the adherents of the leading characters who then maybe repeat stuff or work from master's example.
Yeah, we have a series of social scales that we're playing with. People who are servants to people who are below other people, and we get to play with those games. So yes, as it were, the masters have left the stage. We go into what's labelled Act 1, Scene 3, but it's essentially a continuation of the scene. So Cryticus and Molus have been left alone.
Molus, what odds between thy commons in Athens and the diet at court? A page's life and a scholar's.
This difference. Thereof a little I had somewhat, here a great deal of nothing. There did I wear pantoufles on my legs, here I do bear them in my hands.
Thou may be skilled in thy logic, but not in thy liriput. Belike, no meat can down with you, unless you have a knife to cut it. But come amongst us, and you will see us once in a morning have a mouse at a bay.
A mouse, unproperly spoken.
Aptly understood, a mouse of beef.
I think indeed a piece of beef as big as a mouse seems a great company of such cats. But what else?
For other sports, a square die in a page's pocket is as decent as a square cap on a graduate's head.
You courtiers be mad fellows. We silly souls are only plodders at ergo, whose wits are clasped up in our books, and so full of learning are we at home that we scarce know good manners when we come abroad. Cunning in nothing but making small things great by figures, pulling on with the sweat of our studies a great shoe upon a little foot, burning out one candle and seeking for another, raw wordlings in matter of substance, passing wranglers about shadows.
Then is it time lost to be a scholar? We pages are politicians. For look what we hear our masters talk of, we determine of, where we suspect, we undermine, and where we mislike for some particular grudge, there we pick quarrels for a general grief. Nothing among us, but instead of good morrow, what news? We fall from cogging at dice to cogging with states, and so forward are mean men in those matters, that they would be cocks to tread down others, before they be chicks to rise themselves. Youths are very forward to stroke their chins, though they have no beards, and to lie as loud as he that hath lived longest.
These be golden days.
Then they be very dark days, for I can see no gold.
You are gross-witted, Master Courtier.
And you, Master Scholar, slender-witted.
I met times which were prophesied golden for plenty of all things, sharpness of wit, excellency of in knowledge, policy in government, for...
Stop, Scholaris. I deny your argument.
Why, it is no argument.
Then I deny it because it is no argument. But let us go and follow our masters.
And they exit. Yes, so more wordplay, more wit, more variations on themes. Thoughts about them in comparison with their masters, as it were, and also just in their own right, and the world that they're living in. Any thoughts in the room? No.
I just really enjoy those scenes. I just really enjoyed the arguments.
Rachel.
I think like I always feel like with scenes of like servants and things like that, it's kind of like, because they are silent for the entire time their masters are there, and then they have a lot to say when they're gone, that, you know, when this is being performed at the Blackfriars, I feel like that is the thing where you start to get people laughing, because it's sort of a moment of release where there's more commonality perhaps with them, with these characters, than they would with the more, you know, educated or noble characters, that there is this sort of just release of tension and things like that. And also just how class systems being so rigid at this time, there's also that idea of that if you're noble, you must be of some better character, or educated, you must be a better character than people who don't have, you know, the opportunity or the lineage.
It's interesting that they are there, silent throughout that first scene. You know, it's not like they're given asides or, you know, back chat while their masters are talking. There's a very much, I suspect this is a structural thing to how it was rehearsed, so that you could rehearse the two people and then rehearse two people, rather than, you know, a more complicated four-hander scene, if that makes sense. You get two-handers, and that's much easier to produce. So that might be a reason for that. But it is also interesting, you know, how much upstaging are they doing? In that first scene with their masters, because the potential is there, is enormous. Lynn.
You know, until you know, Rachael said that about, you know, maybe these are characters the audience can relate to a little more. I mean, that's a really nice observation, because I was thinking this scene seems a little unnecessary, because it's really just a kind of echoing of what went on in the previous exchange, the contrast between life at court and the life of the scholar. But yeah, these are lower status characters because they're pages. So there's something comic about that, the fact that they're the pages are imitating their masters, and because they're more modest in status, there's someone the Blackfriars audience maybe could relate to more fully. So it actually does have a function that that I really wasn't seeing before that.
And there's also going to be in relation to what's happening next. I'm going to have to move us a little further on, so hold on to thoughts that you may already have had, because I just want to complete this sequence of Act 1 because there's an interesting question as to whether this scene effectively is a continuation, that we have this almost procession of people coming on into essentially the same location. So here we have a whole selection of people enter Mileta, Lamia, Favilla, Ismena, Canope, and Eugenua, all together, all one at a time.
Is it not strange that Phao on the sudden should be so fair?
It cannot be strange, sith Venus was disposed to make him fair, that cunning had been better bestowed on women, which would have deserved thanks of nature.
Ismena, Tamara.
Ah, my bad. Sorry. Happily she did it in spite of women or scorn of nature.
Proud elf, how squeamish she's become already, using both disdainful looks and imperious words, insomuch that he galleth with ingratitude. And then, ladies, you know how it cutteth a woman to become a wooer.
Hush, children and fools, the fairer they are, the sooner they yield. An apple will catch the one, a baby the other.
Your lover, I think, be a fair fool, for you love nothing but fruit and puppets.
I laugh at that you all call love, and judge it only a word called love. Methinks liking, a curtsy, a smile, a beck, and such like are the very quintessence of love.
Aye, Mileta, but were you as wise as you would be thought fair, or as fair as you think yourself wise, you would be as ready to please men as you are coy to prank yourself, and as careful to be accounted amorous as you are willing to be thought discreet.
No, men are good souls, poor souls, who never inquire but with their eyes, loving to father the cradle, though they but mother the child. Give me their gifts, not their virtues. A grain of their gold weigheth down a pound of their wit. A dram of give me is heavier than an ounce of hear me. Believe me, ladies, give is a pretty thing.
I cannot but oftentimes smile to myself to hear men call us weak vessels when they prove themselves broken-hearted, us frail when their thoughts cannot hang together, studying with words to flatter and with bribes to allure, when we commonly wish their tongues in their purses. They speak so simply, and their offers in their bellies. They do it so peevishly.
It is good sport to see them want matter, for then fall they to good manners, having nothing in their mouths but, oh, sweet mistress, wearing our hands out with courtly kissings, when their wits fail in courtly discourses, now ruffling their hairs, now setting their ruffs, then gazing with their eyes, then sighing with a privy ring by the hand, thinking us like to be wooed by signs and ceremonies.
Yet we, when we swear with our mouths we are not in love, then we sigh from the heart and pine in love.
We are mad wenches, if men mark our words, for when I say I would none cared for love more than I, what mean I, but I would none loved but I. Where we cry away, do we not presently say, go to? And when men strive for kisses, we claim, let us alone, as though we would fall to that ourselves.
Nay, then Canope, it's time to go. And behold, Phao.
Where?
In your head, Ismena, nowhere else. But let us keep on our way.
Wisely.
And they exit, and suddenly we have a scene that I think has elicited slightly a stronger response than the chatting of masters and servants, as we have this collection of women making a collection of statements, some of which we were going, yeah, that's quite fun, and some we were going, oh, not so sure about that one, and all sorts of interesting responses to that. Which, but let's start with the plot point, which is Phao's become hot. When did that happen? He encountered Venus and all thing. He's a very good ferryman. Okay, so thoughts from the room, things you liked, things you didn't like. So much to choose from. Who wants to get in first? Lynn.
Yeah, when you remember that these are boys dressed up as girls, having girl talk in the girls' locker room. I mean, there's just sort of layers of sort of weirdness and transgressive eroticism, and yeah, this could be a lot of things. I mean, you could play it kind of straight and wholesome, and if you had women playing women, you would strip away that layer of gender ambiguity, which also creates a kind of frisson that the original audience would have experienced that we don't necessarily. But yeah, it's just sort of this could go a lot of really weird, creepy directions.
Aliki.
I'm quite charmed by it. I mean, with the exception of the "we say no, but we mean yes" towards the end, which rubbed every woman in the Zoom the wrong way. There's quite a lot of fun to be had, and quite lighthearted fun. It made me think of, this probably dates me very precisely, but that Diet Coke ad where the guy is cleaning the windows and all the women in the office gather outside. So I really kind of want Phao on stage and them going, when did he get so hot?
I freaking love that ad. It's 11 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock.
Could I just congratulate Aliki on getting Tamara to do a spit take just there? That was really nicely timed. Well done. Yeah, the whole thing about when they're talking about I cannot help oftentimes smile to myself to hear men call us weak, and then go through all the things that these men are doing, and there's lots of fun there. And it's the fact that each of these characters do have slightly different opinions and ideas that that they can mock each other for. I do like the little mocking at the end. Behold, Phao, where? That's fascinating. Other thoughts from the room? Eric, then Lois.
I feel like this is like what feminists talk about when they say men should not write female parts, because it's that thing of like, she breasted boobily across the room and like that kind of thing. But like, this is just a group of young boys performing. It's basically what Lynn said, but like another layer of like why they shouldn't be written by men.
Lois.
Yeah, well, I'm picking up on what Eric says in the chat, actually, about that speech about an apple will catch the one, a baby the other. Is she suggesting what I think she is suggesting, getting pregnant to trap a guy? No, I don't think she is, actually. I mean, I think baby means doll on the whole. Children will go for apples and fools will go for babies, which could be baubles, I think. I mean, anyway, just silly toys.
Okay, I'd love to continue chatting on this one, but we do need to move forward. I'm sure there will be more meat on this discussion later on in the play. We're going to go to Act 2, and we're returning to Phao, and we're also going to be introduced to Sybilla. So we have interpolated additional stage directions, which I'm going to ignore for the moment, and just say that we have Phao looking probably a little bit fab now. And Sybilla.
Sorry, I did have a mirror somewhere, but I can't find it. Phao, thy mean fortune causeth thee to use an oar, and thy sudden beauty a glass. By the one is seen thy need, and the other thy pride. O Venus, in thinking thou hast blessed me, thou hast cursed me, adding to a poor estate a proud heart, and to a disdained man a disdaining mind. Thou dost not flatter thyself, Phao, thou art fair. Fair. I fear me fair be a word too foul for face so passing fair. But what availeth beauty? Hadst thou all things thou wouldst wish, thou mightst die tomorrow. And didst thou want all things thou desirest, thou shalt live till thou diest. Tush, Phao, there is grown more pride in thy mind than favour in thy face. Blush, foolish boy, to think on thine own thoughts. Cease complaints and crave counsel, and lo, behold, Sybilla in the mouth of her cave. I will salute her. Lady, I fear me I am out of my way, and so benighted withal that I am compelled to ask your direction.
Fair youth, if you will but be advised by me, you shall for this time seek none other inn than my cave, for that it is no less perilous to travel by night than uncomfortable.
Your courtesy offered hath prevented what my necessity was to entreat.
Come near, take a stool, sit down. And now for that these winter nights are long, and that children delight in nothing more than to hear old wives' tales, we will beguile the time with some stone. And though you behold wrinkles and furrows in my tawny face, yet may you happily find wisdom and counsel in my white hairs.
Lady, nothing can content me better than a tale, neither is there anything more necessary for me than counsel.
Were you born so fair by nature?
No, made so fair by Venus.
For what cause?
I fear me for some curse.
Why? Do you love and cannot obtain?
No, I may obtain, but cannot love.
Take heed of that, my child.
I cannot choose, good madam.
Then hearken to my tale, which I hope shall be as a straight thread to lead you out of these crooked conceits and place you in the plain path of love.
I attend.
When I was young, as you now are, I speak it without boasting, I was as beautiful, for Phoebus in his godhead sought to get my maidenhead. But I, fond wench, receiving a benefit from above, began to wax squeamish beneath, not unlike to Aeolus, which, being made green by heavenly drops, shrinketh into the ground when there fall showers. Or the Syrian mud, which, being made white chalk by the sun, never ceaseth rolling till it lie in the shadow. He to sweet prayers added great promises. I, either desirous to make trial of his power, or willing to prolong mine own life, caught up my handful of sand, consenting to his suit if I might have as many years as there were grains. Phoebus, for what cannot gods do, and what for love will they not do, granted my petition. And then I sigh and blush to tell the rest. I recalled my promise.
Was not the god angry to see you so unkind?
Angry, my boy, which was the cause that I was unfortunate.
What revenge for such rigour used the gods?
None but suffering us to live, and know we are no gods.
I pray tell on.
I will. Having received long life by Phoebus and rare beauty by nature, I thought all the year would have been May, that fresh colours would always continue, that time and fortune could not wear out what gods and nature had wrought up, not once imagining that white and red should return to black and yellow. The juniper, the longer it grew, the crookeder it waxed, or that in a face without blemish there should come wrinkles without number. I did as you do, go with my glass, ravished with the pride of mine own beauty, and you shall do as I do, loath to see a glass, disdaining deformity. There was none that heard of my fault, but shunned my favour, insomuch as I stooped for age before I tasted of youth, sure to be long-lived, uncertain to be beloved. Gentlemen that used to sigh from their hearts for my sweet love began to point with their fingers at my withered face, and laughed to see the eyes out of which fire seemed to sparkle to be succored, being old with spectacles. This caused me to withdraw myself to a solitary cave, where I must lead 600 years. and no less pensiveness of crabbed age than grief of remembered youth. Only this comfort, that being ceased to be fair, I study to be wise, wishing to be thought a grave matron, since I cannot return to be a young maid.
Is it not possible to die before you become so old?
No more possible than to return as you are, to be so young.
Could not you settle your fancy upon any, or would not destiny suffer it?
Women willingly ascribe to that fortune, which wittingly was committed by forwardness.
What will you have me do?
Take heed you do not as I did. Make not too much of fading beauty, which is fair in the cradle and foul in the grave, resembling Polion, whose leaves are white in the morning and blue before night, or Anita, which, being a sweet flower at the rising of the sun, becometh a weed if it be not plucked before the setting. Fair faces have no fruits if they have no witnesses. When you shall behold over this tender flesh creep a tough skin, your eyes, which were wont to glance on others' faces, to be sunk so hollow that you can scarce look out of your own head. And when all your teeth shall wag as fast as your tongue, then will you repent the time which you cannot recall, and be enforced to bear what most you blame. Lose not the pleasant time of your youth, than the which there is nothing sweeter, nothing swifter. Beauty is a slippery good, which decreaseth while it is increasing, resembling the medlar, which in his full ripeness is known to be in a rottenness. Whilst you look in a glass, it waxeth old with time. If on the sun, parched with heat, if on the wind, blasted with cold. A great care to keep it, a short space to enjoy it, a sudden time to lose it. Be not coy when you are courted. Fortune's wings are made of time's feathers, which stay not while one may measure them. Be affable and courteous in youth, that you may be honored in age. Roses that lose their colors keep their savors, and plucked from the stalk are put to the still. Cotonea, because it boweth when the sun riseth, is sweetest when it is oldest, and children, which in their tender years sow courtesy, shall in their declining states reap pity. Be not proud of beauty's painting, whose colors consume themselves, because they are beauty's painting.
I am driven by your counsel into diverse conceits, neither knowing how to stand or where to fall, but to yield to love is the only thing I hate.
I commit you to fortune, who is like to play such pranks with you as your tender years can scarce bear, nor your green wits understand. But repair unto me often, and if I cannot remove the effects, yet I will manifest the causes.
I go ready to return for advice before I am resolved to adventure.
Yet hearken 2 words. Thou shalt get friendship by dissembling, love by hatred. Unless thou perish, thou shalt perish. In digging for a stone, thou shalt reach a star. Thou shalt be hated most, because thou art loved most. Thy death shall be feared and wished. So much for prophecy, which nothing can prevent, and this for counsel, which thou mayest follow. Keep not company with ants that have wings, nor talk with any near the hill of a mole. Where thou smellest the sweetness of a serpent's breath, beware thou touch no part of the body. Be not merry among those that put bugloss in their wine and sugar in thine. If any talk of the eclipse of the sun, say thou never sawest it. Nourish no conies in thy vaults, nor swallows in thine eaves. So next thy vine mandraga, and ever keep thine ears open and thy mouth shut, thine eyes upward and thy fingers down. So shalt thou do better than otherwise, though never so well as I wish.
Alas, madam, your prophecy threateneth miseries, and your counsel warneth impossibilities.
Farewell, I can answer no more.
and exit the Sybilla into a cave, but Phao remains. But we'll just briefly pause there. Sybilla has quite a lot to say, and you managed to do that very nicely. I mean, we've said this before, that actually, by and large, these long speeches sort of do flow quite nicely. You know, as an actor, we see them and go, yeah. That's a lot of words. I do feel for Phao here a bit, because Phao is basically being told, well, you know, beauty's a trap, but enjoy it while it lasts.
Well, she's also saying don't be a dick about it.
But to yield to love is the only thing he hates. So, you know.
What an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, always listen to people you encounter in random caves, because they are important. So Phao is not sure what to do with his sudden gorgeousness there at the beginning. Rachael, thoughts?
Just two about this scene at the very beginning, like after the previous scene, this just comes off like that Monty Python and the Holy Grail, when the one guy walks into like the nunnery and then he's trying to like escape. Like, it just seems like he's so wanted to like a comical like level. And then after that, I was thinking about how you know, talking about this, he has so much antithesis in his language. And I was also thinking that it kind of, every once in a bit, like he loves this language that's so beautiful, and there's so much poetry in it. And it seemed to me at first that it all has a point, but it sometimes seems to wander and get lost. But I think like for this scene where it's just like it actually really does fit after all, like contrary to my own first thoughts about it, because you know, this is all about his beauty, and then there's so much like flower in the language as well, you know, in a play to do with Venus, and especially in this scene of these two people who were this one person who was once favored by a god, and this person who's currently favored by a goddess.
Yes, we have the themes are all talking to each other across scenes in nice and pleasing ways. I mean, it's interesting. We can't be certain whether there wasn't a mini musical break or something between the act. But I love the way they say, "Look, there's Phao. Where he's in your head," and then he enters when they've exited. And whether that actually reads as a joke or whether there's a gap that slightly breaks that up. Yes, Sybilla has quite a lot to say. How are we liking this scene overall? Thoughts? The rest of the room? Otherwise, I'll just move forward, because there was more Sybilla to come.
Just to say that I was really drawn in. I saw the big speeches, but then once Aliki started talking, it was great. If you get a really good storyteller for this, you can really draw the audience in and settle down for a tale of her youth and adventures. It was great.
Yeah, there's a little nod ahead to listening to an old wives' tale. 10 years ahead in the future or so, we will quite literally have that in some Peel. Eric.
Well, also I like the advice that she gives. It's like sort of contradictory, just sort of. But it kind of feels like a lot of the stuff that, you know, oracles and soothsayers would give. You know, if you just look at any of the other sort of oracles in history and stuff, and sort of plays, and
yeah. Okay, we're going to move forward. Next scene, the continuation of the scene. So Sybilla's gone, has exited, but Phao is left, and we have entering. It's the moment we've all been waiting for. The other title character is coming on stage. We've heard lots about Sappho so far. So enter Sappho, Trachinus, Pandion, Cryticus, and Molus. I think, yes.
unhappy Phao. But soft, what gallant troop is this? What gentlewoman is this?
Sappho, a lady here in Sicily.
What fair boy is that?
Phao, the ferryman of Syracuse.
I never saw one more brave, be all ladies of such majesty.
No, this is she that all wonder at and worship.
I have seldom seen a sweeter face. Be all ferrymen of that fairness?
No, madam, this is he that Venus determined among men to make the fairest.
Seeing I am only come forth to take the air, I will cross the ferry and sow the fields, then going in through the park. I think the walk will be pleasant.
You will much delight in the flattering green, which now beginneth to be in his glory.
Sir boy, will ye undertake to carry us over the water? Are you dumb? Cannot you speak?
Madam, I crave pardon. I am spur-blind. I could scarce see.
It is pity in so good a face there should be an evil eye.
I would in my face there were never an eye.
Thou canst never be rich in a trade of life of all the basest.
Yet content, madam, which is a kind of life of all the best.
Wilt thou forsake the ferry and follow the court as a page?
As it pleaseth fortune, madam, to whom I am apprentice.
Come, let us go.
Will you go to Pandion?
Yay.
Oh, sorry. Will you go, Pandion?
Yay.
Still a yay. Still a yay.
Yeah, still,
They
yeah.
exit.
Sorry, it just completely changed the meaning of the line, so I had to fix it.
Oh no, absolutely, lovely. And again, we have Molus and Cryticus are left behind. The servants, or it always just seems to be what happens to them. Okay, so Phao, to yield to love is the only thing I hate. Do we think he may be a little bit tracking on that there? There's a very interesting beat in mid-line, which did very nicely. So boy, will you undertake to carry us over the water? Speak.
I'm dumbstruck again. I was like, I'm muted.
Yeah. So yeah, we think maybe he's a bit taken. And yeah, he's been invited to join. So yeah, there's a bit of mutual takenness, perhaps, or not. Who knows? Let's see where this goes. Aliki.
It looks that way. It looks like you've got each with their confidant on kind of either side of the stage going, oh, wow, who's that hottie? Psst, it's so-and-so.
Yeah, it's still, I don't know, it's still a bit Romeo and Juliet even. Whoops. It's such a pop culture thing though, I don't know, is there an earlier one? Is there something earlier that I can reference?
There are things, yes, we could reference. That's fine. Well, let it just move on. It's the meet cute, isn't it? It's the meet cute.
All year.
But yeah, to go with rom-com language, modern language, it's the meet cute. It's that little moment of ness. That's quite fun. Other thoughts, Eric?
I hope I wonder why Pandion is being dragged along, because he's like obviously the sort of skeptical scholar of this sort of thing. And also, I was there's a line that sounded a bit like a fairy tale, where yes, Venus determined among men to make the fairest, as a description of Phao, and it just struck me as something that you might hear in a fairy tale, or sort of the reverse of the Trojan myth about Paris and the three goddesses.
Alan?
Yeah, I'm just slightly wondering why Cryticus has got the role of basically having to look after Phao's interests, because we haven't actually seen him having any interaction previously.
I think he's just asking some random bloke wandering along. If he's just carrying the luggage, he's not going to go to the highest born
Yeah,
member of the party, is he? If he's just someone carrying the suitcase.
It's just the random lad at the bar.
Yeah. You know, going, hey, who's that girl? Kind of thing. Okay, we have more action because, say, once again, the servants have been left behind, while the rest of the party have moved on. Hold on to any thoughts you may have already had as we continue with Molus and Cryticus at this moment.
Cryticus comes in good time. I shall not be alone. What news, Cryticus?
I taught you that lesson, to ask what news, and this is the news. Tomorrow there shall be a desperate fray between two, made at all weapons, from the brown bill to the bodkin.
Now thou talkest of frays, I pray thee, what is that whereof they talk so commonly in court? Valor, the stab, the pistol, for the which every man that dareth is so much honoured.
Oh, Molus, beware of valour. He that can look big and wear his dagger pommel lower than the point, that lieth at a good ward, and can hit a button with a thrust, and will into the field man to man for a bout or two, he, Molus, is a shrewd fellow, and shall be well followed.
What is the end?
Danger or death.
If it be but death that bringeth all this commendation, I count him as valiant that is killed with a surfeit as with a sword.
How so?
If I venture upon a full stomach to eat a rasher on the coals, a carbonado, drink a carouse, swallow all things that may procure sickness or death, am I not as valiant to die so in a house as the other in a field? Methinks that epicures are as desperate as soldiers, and cooks provide as good weapons as cutlers.
Oh, valiant knight.
I will die for it. What greater valor?
Scholars fight, who rather seek to choke their stomachs than see their blood.
I will stand upon this point. If it be valor to dare die, he is valiant howsoever he dieth.
Well, of this hereafter. But here come Calipho. We will have some sport.
And indeed, enter Calipho.
My mistress, I think, hath got a gadfly, never at home, and yet none can tell where abroad. My master was a wise man when he matched with such a woman. When she comes in, we must put out the fire because of the smoke, hang up our hammers because of the noise, and do not work, but watch what she wanteth. She is fair, but by my troth, I doubt of her honesty. I must seek her that I fear Mars hath found.
Whom dost thou seek?
I have found those I seek not.
I hope you have found those that are honest.
It may be, but I seek no such.
Cryticus, you shall see me by learning to prove Calipho to be the devil.
Let us see. But I pray thee, prove it better than thou didst thyself to be valiant.
Calipho, I will prove thee to be the devil.
Then will I swear thee to be a god.
The devil is black.
What care I?
Thou art black.
What care you?
Therefore thou art the devil.
I deny that.
It is the conclusion, thou must not deny it.
In spite of all conclusions, I will deny it.
Molus, the smith holds you hard.
Thou seest he hath no reason.
Try him again.
I will reason with the now from a place. With thee now. I will reason with thee now from a place.
I mean to answer you in no other place.
Like master, like man.
It may be.
But thy master hath homes.
And so mayest thou.
Therefore thou hast homes, and ergo a devil.
Be they all devils have homes?
All men that have homes are.
Then are there more devils on earth than in hell?
But what dost thou answer?
I deny that.
What?
Whatsoever it is that shall prove me a devil. But hearest thou, scholar, I am a plain fellow, and can fashion nothing but with the hammer. What wilt thou say if I prove thee a smith?
Then I will say thou art a scholar.
Prove it, Calipho, and I will give thee a good colophon.
I will prove it, or else.
Or else what?
or else I will not prove it. Thou art a smith, therefore thou art a smith. The conclusion you say must not be denied, and therefore it is true thou art a smith.
Aye, but I deny your antecedent.
Aye, but you shall not. Have I not touched him, Cryticus?
You have both done learnedly, for as sure as he is a smith, thou art a devil.
And then he a devil, because a smith, for that it was his reason to make me a devil, being a smith.
There's no reasoning with these mechanical dolts whose wits are in their hands, not in their heads.
Be not choleric. You are wise. But let us take up this matter with a song.
I am content my voice is as good as my reason.
Then shall we have sweet music? But come, I will not break off.
And here they sing a song you don't have to sing, you can just say it.
Merry knaves are we three, eh?
When our songs do agree, eh?
Oh, now I well see, eh? What anon we shall be, eh?
If we ply thus our singing,
Pots then must be flinging.
If the drink be but stinging,
I shall forget the rules of grammar.
and I pit a pat of my hammer.
to the tap house let us gang and roar. Cal hard 'tis rare to vamp a score. Draw dry the tub, be it old or new, and part not till the ground look blue.
And they exit various things there. We haven't had for a while a random song, and this is in that really nice category of random song. Let us take up this matter with the song. Why? Because it's I'd say it's the end of the act, but it isn't. Yes, we haven't had a random song for a while. A whole series of witty responses which have not aged well. So yes, this Calipho, who is a blacksmith and a cyclops, covered in soot, and so they're trying to make all sorts of witty things about as black as a devil, which is which is a relative commonplace which we've had pop up in quite a few plays now, about half a dozen, which yes is not great, not great. Bit of a problem there. Valiant miming, by the way. Some excellent trying to get across the typo there, where Holmes have failed the OCR process and have come out when it should be Horns. It should be Horns, not Holmes. So apologies for everyone at home who's going, why are they talking about Holmes? The devil has a home? I mean, what is this? Very strange. General questions, issues, thoughts about this scene beyond the obvious, or dive into that obvious. Feel free. Anyone want to leap in? The silence of no one really wanting to step into that one. Eric, brave or foolish?
It really is that thing of probably foolish. It really is that thing of the servants trying to imitate the logic of their masters, like last time where we had Diogenes and Plato and so on and so forth. But the result was the same, because the last time they didn't eat. This time they're trying to sort of reason, but not really getting anywhere.
Mm. And Rachael.
I think besides the obvious problems that come up that haven't aged well, I think that's also this thing where even though they're all servants, there is still a hierarchy, I think, or in that Calipho is servant to the gods, and so that's just a higher order. And there's kind of like this playfulness that he takes with them, that I think there's, that they're poking fun at him because Venus is obviously, running around on Vulcan, but he's also poking at them because they don't seem to have any idea of who he is, or maybe they do from what they're saying. Who knows? It's sort of like something that the audience would get, I think, at that time.
Other thoughts, Alan?
I must admit that the further this goes on, I see my character, Cryticus, and Molus as being relatively young lads who basically are up for mischief if they think they can get away with it. And Calipho, as we know, he's a smith, he's a cyclops, is therefore, there's probably a bit of ableism going on here as well. I get the impression he's probably not regarded to be the brightest match in the box as well. So they're actually trying to rag him a bit. And I think the whole of that sequence, and indeed the previous dialogue that involved Cryticus and Molus, needs to be played almost at a pace. It's almost a double talk act.
Other thoughts before we move on? Aliki?
Yeah, I agree that it should be, basically I'm agreeing that it should be really fast and he should probably be a really big guy. He's a blacksmith after all, with an eye patch. Yeah.
It's big and not quick.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go into another sequence which I suspect we need to go with a reasonable lick, but for different reasons, as we go into Act 2, Scene 4. So we're back at the cave. We've got Phao and Sybilla will be entering in a little bit.
What unacquainted thoughts are these, Phao? Far unfit for thy thoughts, unmeet for thy birth, thy fortune, thy years, for Phao. Unhappy canst thou not be content to behold the sun, but thou must covet to build thy nest in the sun. Doth Sappho bewitch thee, whom all the ladies in Sicily could not woo? Yeah, poor Phao, the greatness of thy mind is far above the beauty of thy face, and the hardness of thy fortune beyond the bitterness of thy words. Die, Phao, die! For there is no hope if thou be wise, nor safety if thou be fortunate. Oh, Phao, the more thou seekest to suppress these mounting affections, they soar the loftier, and the more thou wrestlest with them, the stronger they wax, not unlike unto a ball, which the harder it is thrown against the earth, the higher it boundeth into the air, or our Sicilian stone, which groweth hardest by hammering. Oh, divine love, and therefore divine, because love, whose deity no conceit can compass, and therefore no authority can constrain, as miraculous in working as mighty, and no more to be suppressed than comprehended. How now, Phao, whither art thou carried, committing idolatry with that God whom thou hast caused to blaspheme? Poor Sappho. Peace, miserable wretch, enjoy thy care in covert, wear willow in thy hat, and bays in thy heart, lead a lamb in thy hand, and a fox in thy hand, a dove on the back of thy hand, and a sparrow in the palm. Gold boileth best when it bubbleth least. Water runneth smoothest where it is deepest. Let thy love at thy heart's bottom, not at the tongue's brim. Things untold are undone. There can be no greater comfort than to know much, nor any less labour than to say nothing. But thy beauty, Sappho, thy beauty. Beginnest thou to blab? Blab it, Phao, as long as thou blabst her beauty. Bees that die with honey are buried with harmonic. Swans that end their lives with songs are covered when they are dead with flowers, and they that till their latter gasp commend beauty shall be ever honoured with benefits. In these extremes I will go to none other oracle than Sybilla, whose old years have not been idle in these young attempts, and whose sound advice may mitigate, though he heaves, the heaves cannot remove my miseries. Oh, Sappho! Sweet Sappho! Sappho! Sybilla?
And Sybilla enters.
Who's there?
One not worthy to be one.
Fair Phao.
Unfortunate Phao.
Come in.
So I will, and quit thy tale of Phoebus with one whose brightness darkeneth Phoebus. I love Sappho, Sybilla. Sappho, Sappho, Sybilla.
A short tale, Phao, and a sorrowful. It asketh pity rather than counsel.
So it is, Sybilla, yet in those firm years methinketh there should harbour such experience as may defer, though not take away, my destiny.
It is hard to cure that by words which cannot be eased by herbs. And yet, if thou wilt take advice, be attentive.
I have brought mine ears of purpose and will hang at your mouth till you have finished your discourse.
Love, fair child, is to be governed by art, as thy boat by an oar. For fancy, though it cometh by hazard, is ruled by wisdom. If my precepts may persuade, and I pray, let them persuade, I would wish the first to be diligent, for that women desire nothing more than to have their servants officious. Be always in sight, but never slothful. Lie. Little things catch light minds, and fancy is a worm that feedeth first upon fennel. Imagine with thyself all are to be one. Otherwise, mine advice were as unnecessary as thy labor. It is impossible for the brittle metal of woman to withstand the flattering attempts of men. Only this, let them be asked. Their sex requireth no less, their modesties are to be allowed so much. Be prodigal in praises and promises, beauty must have a trumpet, and pride a gift. Peacocks never spread their feathers but when they are flattered, and gods are seldom pleased if they be not bribed. There is none so foul that thinketh not herself fair. In commending, thou canst lose no labor, for every one thou shalt be believed. Oh, simple women, that are brought rather to believe what their ears hear of flattering men than what their eyes see in true glasses.
You digress, only to make me believe that women do so lightly believe.
Then to the purpose. Choose such times to break thy suit as thy lady is pleasant. The wooden horse entered Troy when the soldiers were quaffing, and Penelope, forsooth, whom fables make so coy, among the pots, wrung her wooers by the fists when she lowered on their faces. Grapes are mind glasses. Venus worketh in Bacchus' press, and bloweth fire upon his liquor. When thou talkest with her, let thy speech be pleasant, but not incredible. Choose such words as many may, melt her mind. Honey rankleth when it is eaten for pleasure, and fair words wound when they are heard for love. Write, and persist in writing. They read more than is written to them, and write less than they think. In conceit, study to be pleasant. In attire, brave, but not too curious. When she smileth, laugh outright. If rise, stand up. If sit, lie down. Lose all thy time to keep time with her. Can you sing? Show your cunning. Can you dance? Use your legs. Can you play upon any instrument? Practice your fingers to please her fancy. Seek out qualities. If she seem at first cruel, be not discouraged. I tell thee a strange thing. Women strive because they would be overcome. Force they call it, but such a welcome force they account it, that continually they study to be enforced. The fair words join sweet kisses, which if they gently receive, I say no more, they will gently receive. But be not pinned always upon her sleeves. Strangers have green rushes, when daily guests are not worth a rush. Look pale, and learn to be lean, that whoso seeth thee may say, oh, the gentleman is in love. Use no sorcery to hasten thy success. Wit is a witch. Ulysses was not fair, but wise, not cunning in charms, but sweet in speech, whose filed tongue made those enamored that sought to have him enchanted. Be not coy, bear sooth, swear, die to please thy lady. These are rules for poor lovers. To others I am no mistress. He hath wit enough that can give enough. Dumb men are eloquent if they be liberal. Believe me, great gifts are little gods. When thy mistress doth bend her brow, do not thou bend thy fist. Cammocks must not be bowed with sleight nor strength. Water to be trained with pipes, not stopped with sluices. Fire to be quenched with dust, not with swords. If thou have a rival, be patient. Art must wind him out, not malice. Time, not might, her change, and thy constancy. Whatever she weareth, swear it becomes her. In thy love be secret. Venus' coffers, though they be hollow, never sound, and when they seem emptiest, they are fullest. Old fool that I am to do thee good. I begin to dote and counsel that which I would have concealed. Thus, Phao, have I given thee certain regards, no rules, only to set thee in the way, not to bring thee home.
Sybilla, I pray go on, that I may glut myself in the science.
Thou shalt not surfeit, Phao, while I diet thee. Flies that die on the honeysuckle become poison to bees. A little in love is a great deal.
But all that can be said, not enough.
White silver draweth black lines, and sweet words will breed sharp torments.
But what shall become of me?
Go! Dare!
And she exits.
I go? Phao, thou canst but die, and then as good die with great desires as pine in base fortunes.
And exit Phao. And amidst that epic soup of suggestions, you know, there are ones where we go, and there's ones we go, yeah, and then there's ones we go, yeah. I do particularly like choose such words as many may, melt her mind. That's both sinister and lovely at the same time. It's sort of fascinating. Yeah, commonplace ones that we might recognize that are also tricky but also very common, and there's all sorts of things flying around there. Yeah, go dare.
Ooh, yeah. A lot of stuff that, at least my feeling, and for me, has not aged well. Women are basically really superficial and vain, so you get them by flattery, whether they're attractive or not. If she thinks she's pretty, whoever she is. I found particularly disturbing the wait till she's drunk. Yeah. Where does she say when she's pleasant, and that it turns out that means when she's been drinking. Because the soldiers were drinking when the wooden horse got rolled in, and even Penelope, when her among the pots when there was drinking going on, shook their hands even though she was frowning in their faces. Grapes are mind glasses, so you can see into someone's mind. You can see the mirror of their mind when they're drunk. It's just, oh yeah, we're not talking about like consensual encounters here. It made me super uncomfortable.
Lois.
Yeah, it's even older than you think it is too, because it's mostly coming from Ovid, and it gets used by other people. I mean, Johnson has a speech very like this in The Silent Woman. I still remember the bit in there about how, if you could have raped this woman but didn't, she will actually resent it forever afterwards and wish you had, this kind of thing. They just love this. It comes from the art of love, I think.
Eric.
Just that line about, can you play upon any instrument, practice your fingers to please your fancy? And it's like, okay, obviously this is about music, but it could also be read in a different way.
I did try to read it a bit in a different way.
Yeah. It's hard not to, though.
Whatsoever she weareth, swear it becomes her.
Don't tell her she's fat.
Aliki.
Those cheats.
I have a dissenting opinion here. I mean, yeah, I agree some of these are a bit dodgy, but quite a lot of this, I think, like nearly 80% is pretty good advice. Always say you look gorgeous in that. Well, come on, don't you?
I mean, one thing we can say, I think fairly safely now that we've met Sybilla a couple of times, is that these speeches are really long. So there is an element of going, right, which bits do we want to cut? And so I don't think there's a problem of saying we need to trim some of this material out. And therefore, what does one do with that? I mean, it's interesting. We haven't talked about Phao, and Phao has this opening speech of, you know, just going, damn it, I'm in love and I'm trying to push it down, but it keeps popping up again. And, you know, there's someone who has absolutely no. I put these things in and I'm so glad it gets a reaction. No, never. No double entendre not left unmined. The idea that Phao's quite young and inexperienced. You know, there's something actually good about the fact Phao going for advice. That's nice. How was Phao for you, Tamara?
I think he's quite cute, really.
Well, we know he's fit, so you know.
Not in that way. More in a not in the washboard abs. No, I liked what we came up with in the chat. Definitely, I can totally see him sitting there with like a notepad going.
Yeah.
Because he just doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't. He's like, I don't like girls. I don't.
It's like, obviously the river traffic has always been men. You know, he's led a sheltered life as a ferryman and just hasn't been meeting people, and you know, maybe he needs help. We've got one more scene we need to go through before we close the session. There's a reason why we're jumping into the very beginning of Act 3 and doing this short little scene-ette here, even though actually in many ways it would be easier if we started this tomorrow, but there is a reason why we're doing this now. So enter Trachinus, Pandion, Mileta, and Ismena.
Sappho is fallen suddenly sick. I cannot guess the cause.
Some cold belike, or else a woman's qualm.
A strange nature of cold to drive one into such a heat.
Your physic, sir, I think be of the second sort. Else would you not judge it rare that hot fevers are engendered by cold causes?
Indeed, lady, I have no more physic than will purge choler, and that if it please you, I will practice upon you. It is good for women that be waspish.
Faith, sir, no. You are best purge your own melancholy. Belike you are a malcontent.
It is true, and are you not a female content?
Soft, I am not content that a male and female content should go together.
Ismena is disposed to be merry.
No, it is Pandion would fain seem wise.
You shall not fall out, for pigeons after biting fall to billing, and open jars make the closest jests.
And enter Eugenua.
Mileta, Ismena, Mileta, come away. My lady is in a swoon.
Ay me.
Come, let us make haste.
And exeunt Eugenia, Mileta, and Ismena.
I am sorry for Sappho, because she will take no physic. Like you, Pandion, who, being sick of the sullens, will seek no friend.
Of men we learn to speak, of gods to hold our peace. Science shall digest what folly hath swallowed, and wisdom shall wean what fancy hath nursed.
Is it Not love.
If it were, what then?
Nothing but that I hope it be not.
Why, in courts there is nothing more common, and as to be bald among the Mycenaeans, it was accounted no shame because they were all bald. As to be in love among courtiers is no discredit, for they are all in love.
Oh, why? What do you think of our ladies?
As of the Sarah's wool, which being whitest and softest, fretteth soonest and deepest.
I will not tempt you in your deep melancholy, lest you seem sour to those which are so sweet. But come, let us walk a little into the fields. It may be the open air will disclose your close conceits.
I will go with you, but send our pages away.
And there the scene ends, or is continued into the next action with some more servant business. But we are going to stop the session there. The reason why I wanted to do something that stopped essentially mid-session, is because this is actually the spoilers for tomorrow, people. This is the last we see of Trachinus and Pandion. They do not return. I wanted to sort of clear the deck of them. So I just wanted to talk about them briefly. I'm noticing some very good gestures here of like the why. I wonder if Tamara, would you elaborate on your expansive gesture there?
Well, I just wasn't expecting them to disappear now. I don't know what else to say other than that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've had these characters. They've had a couple of scenes. They've done some banter, and now they disappear.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was Pandion was being set up as a love rival to Phao, but no.
Are there new characters? Is this spoilers? Are there new characters coming in? Is it a doubling issue?
Nope. I don't think there's almost any new characters entering at all. There might be one. Apart from that, I think we are returning with people we have mostly already met. It's again, we don't necessarily need to discuss this in detail today, but for those who are returning tomorrow, just bear that one in mind as a noteworthy thing. Plot terms: Sappho is fallen suddenly sick, and no one can guess the cause. What could be the cause? That wasn't rhetorical, by the way. If anyone would like to elaborate on this thought, feel free to do so. This is quite difficult for me. I am genuinely trying not to actually push people in directions because I know this play better than some of the other ones we normally do. Lynn.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the way I interpret this, the way I would expect it to be played, is that everybody knows she's got a crush on someone. That I hope it's not love, but everybody knows. We're just pretending to think, oh, it's the flu, it's a lady thing.
Anything else about this little scene, Rachael?
About this is just a guess. I mean, like about Trachinus and Pandion is like, you know, if he was writing for a certain company or whatever, maybe maybe these guys just have there was just two guys who had a certain rapport with each other, and he was just writing the parts specifically for them, and then they just leave in the middle. Who knows?
But maybe it's their bedtime.
Yeah. They're done.
I mean, that's not a wholly a silly suggestion. I mean, there may be doubling within the other characters who are about, who we've already met, but I don't quite think that is a thing that makes sense. I'm about to go into final thoughts, which we'll do briefly. But Eric first.
I was just going to say that Pandion has really crap puns, like male content and female content. Come on, guy. It's just I was like, what? No. He's a scholar. He's supposed to be smarter than that. Clearly not.
Especially because, you know, we were talking about intellectual pleasures when we started the session.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to go around the room for final thoughts. I think I'll start with Lynn. So yeah, final thoughts about the play so far. There's still 50% of it to go. How are you finding the journey so far? With it obviously in mind that there is always the option of a blue pencil.
Yes. I'm trying to focus on that possibility, because I found it really rather delightful until Sybilla got into her how to get what you want advice, which I found quite off-putting and quite misogynist. But hey, that could be massaged into something a little more acceptable. So, but overall, the Lily's plays are kind of little jewels, and if you enjoy that kind of thing, which I typically do, they're lovely. And although this one, unlike the one that we did last week, Campaspe, this one is just bound to end sadly, because the ferryman and the princess, I don't think that's going to work out. So we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Well, that's the question. Whether the room thinks that's how it's going to go. Maybe we hope for something different. Emma, how was it for you?
Yeah, I've been really enjoying it. I think there's loads of different things going on, and it has great ingredients for a really good story. You've got a young, inexperienced guy, the hero, who is being basically given a superpower that he doesn't really know how to handle, and I think that's a premise for a great story. So I'm excited to see more of Sappho as well. We've kind of got a glimmer of her so far, but I'm sure she really comes to the fore in the second half. So I look forward to that.
Yes, Eric, how are things for you? I mean, you were mostly a character who we won't see again. So
wearing a red shirt. I feel like he kind of, how do you call it? It might be a true portrayal of scholars who were trying to be funny, but obviously not, and they were just like dedicated to study because they couldn't really handle social life. I don't know, maybe that's just me. But I like the sort of, like, it feels like it should be faster because of not just his parts, but I mean most of it. There's all the servants' parts and all that gameplay feels like it should be faster. And I'm interested to see what would happen at pace. Maybe not necessarily with the long speeches, because like we proved yesterday with Gorbaduck, it kind of slows things down. But yeah,
yes,
it's a lot of backstory for Sybilla, basically.
Yeah, yes, though I think we can definitely warn against the dangers of doing those speeches quite slowly. Lois, final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think the characters in Campaspe are more entertaining actually than the ones in this play. There's a greater variety of them, and it's a bit more fun. And as Lynn said, it also ends relatively happily. And this is obviously not going to. I don't know. A lot of the language I think is very beautiful, including in Sybilla's speeches. I don't know the sources of all of them, but I suspect he's getting them from quite a lot of other places. These generally very flowery, decorated things. Yeah, I also tend to feel what I think Eric was suggesting, that if one took more scenes at a time, one might get more sense of the thing. I don't know. I just kept feeling that I would like to have a bit better sense of how the different scenes related to each other. I think they tend to be just sort of facets of a single story, but it was hard to tell because we were breaking it up so much.
Yeah, this is one where the flow of those scenes, because they're a lot of them aren't separate scenes; they are just scenes that flow into each other. Or, characters are still on stage, so yeah, that movement of action I think is very important. That's one for the second look, people. Alan, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think on pacing, it's almost got an inbuilt dynamic, because what you've got is most of the scenes which are fairly fast crosstalk. And then you've got the sequences with Sybilla in particular, which do sort of slow it down a little bit, but not unduly. And I think that the contrast that's building up in there. The other one that I'm still trying to come to terms with is the choice of the name of Sappho as the lead. Did that have the same connotation that that word has in these days, or was it just a generalized, randomized name?
It's an excellent question, which we'll come to another time, but I will bank that for response on that. Aliki, final thoughts to you.
So I think we're exaggerating the misogyny to a certain extent, because in very patriarchal societies, a lot of these things are true. Women have to say no to men, and therefore men have to be quite aggressive in making their feelings clear. And I speak not exactly from my own experience, but from a degree of observation. But if you really wanted to play that up, if you really wanted to play with that, what you could do is cross-cast this in gender. Because what you get in the character, I blank his name on Phao, is what young women get when they suddenly go from gawky adolescence into being pretty, and they are mobbed by men. And the reaction is, I hate men, I don't want to have anything to do with any of you, go away. So it might be quite nice to have a young woman play him and a young man play Sappho, and all the way around. And that would kind of bring out some of these nuances that we've been talking about and problematize them a bit, if that's a word.
We will go to Rachael. Final thoughts from you.
I don't know. I'm kind of, I the language is beautiful. I think like there's so many scenes where there's just an introduction of more and more characters, that it kind of gets a little it kind of gets a little big. And I think like how you said that that two of them get cut out in the second half. I think that's kind of to bring it more into focus. And then there's obvious those things that kind of have not really aged well. But there is a lot of like interesting things going on linguistically. And I think there's a lot of though this is written in prose, he takes a very poetic approach to it, and you can see that there's some sort of skeleton of poetry in there.
And it's like Campaspe in the sense that, once again, very little has actually happened. There is very little action involved, and there is that sense of this indoor theatre, this closed world of you set the atmosphere up. If you get the atmosphere in the room right, and then you can sort of run with that. It's not like a play where you throw in different things and different directions. I think you need to get the mood of the room right, and that might make a thing. I could be just throwing random things out there. Joe, your first time. Final thoughts from you.
Sure. I'm gonna not mention that person that we can't mention, but there's this line in the first cave scene: I fear me fair be a word too foul for a face so passing fair, that just reminds me of something, I don't know what. And then Sybilla says, I see it, says, these winter nights are long, let's have a nice wives' tale, which also reminds me of something else. But what I'm really intrigued with...
The Old Wives' Tale by George Green, absolutely, yes.
Exactly. She says to Phao, come near, take a stool, sit down. In other words, I'm going to be talking for a long time. You might want to sit down for this. But I think structurally, it sets up the character. You got the first cave scene, she talks a lot. A couple pages later, the second you're already prepared as an audience. This is the woman that is going to talk.
Excellent. Tamara, or more importantly, Sammy. Final thoughts. What's the cat's perspective on this?
Have you got thoughts? You just came in to say hi. He's got no thoughts. We talked about this before, but I really think this one deserves a second look and a full run through, because I'm really enjoying it, but I think it deserves the pace that it's trying to go at. And the other thing about this one in particular, and I haven't been around for 2 weeks, so for me it's been a while, that I've had a play that we read that I really, really, really wanted to see done on stage because I could see it. Every scene had things that gave me ideas on how to make it visually interesting. Initially I thought, oh, there's these huge chunks of text, how do you make that interesting? But as with the scene where we said, oh, Phao should just be taking notes here, it's suggesting so many things, so much physicality that I would love to explore. I think that's another one to put on stage, if possible.
Excellent. Right. Well, we have gone round the room on the first half of Sappho and Phao. We will be returning when we may get much more meat to be chewing on tomorrow when we return for the rest of the play. Thanks to everyone who has contributed today, and it's all that remains is to do cheesy goodbyes. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.